Hi, I'm Donna. I own in Frenchtown, a bed and breakfast located in historic St. Charles, Missouri. Come along with me today and discover why I love living in Frenchtown. I'm on 2nd Street at the Frenchtown Heritage Museum. Hi, I'm here with Marsha Adams, who is my neighbor. Marsha, how long have you lived in Frenchtown?
We moved to Frenchtown in 2001, so we've been here 22 years.
Wow, okay. And you're the one that I go to with all my questions about Frenchtown and historic St. Charles. So I have a few more questions for you.
Okay.
Marsha, what is Frenchtown?
So Frenchtown is a section of St. Charles within the city limits. There are several sections. There's the Commons, there's Midtown, there's Old Town, there's Frenchtown, there's South Main, North Main. It's areas that they designated many, many years ago. And in this age, it doesn't really mean a lot anymore because they've kind of been divided up into historic districts. But it's something that the people have always talked about. It was kind of like the Commons ground was the Commons, and Frenchtown is where most of the French lived. And
So people, when I say I live in Frenchtown, when they Google Frenchtown, they're really not going to find a place.
no, they will not find Frenchtown because it's not a legal name like St. Charles. You're going to find St. Charles City. Even on the city's website, you can't just Google all the entities that the people are used to using for Midtown,
okay.
Commons,
Right.
Old Town, and that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I tried it.
Okay, and I see we've got this map here.
Yes, Frenchtown goes from the river to the east side of 5th Street, from Clark Street to Tecumseh, and it does kind of meander down through here. It's not a complete square there, but that's the area that was always known as Frenchtown. So we go from East 5th to the 2nd to the river, and from Clark to Tecumseh is the best way to describe the Frenchtown area.
Marsha, when I moved here, I was surprised that I kept getting the same questions from people in the neighborhood. The first thing they'd say is, what's your basement like? And then the second thing they would ask is, do you have ghosts?
That question gets raised a lot here in Frenchtown because it is a lot of very old buildings and a lot of very old homes. We do know that there are people who feel there are spirits who have lived in their homes before. A couple examples are one of the neighbors across the street, their family, several generations had lived in the home, and it seemed that every generation felt the presence of a spirit. She told us one day that they really felt that it was a young boy who had fallen in the cistern behind the house and had died. And years later, the house was made larger and built over the top of the cistern.
Oh.
And they felt that it was him making connection with the family that lived there. The other story that went around a lot was one of the other neighbors who they had this huge tree in the front yard, and the husband kept saying that he would feel somebody touch him at night. And his wife, he said, so I think we have a ghost. And his wife kept saying, no, we do not have a ghost. And he would say, yes, we do. Well, at work one day, she was telling the story, and one of her coworkers said, well, I am a shaman. She said, would you like me to come and smudge your house? So she said, of course, come smudge the house. So she did. She came, she smudged their house, but while she was there, she told them that she did feel the presence of a young girl. She said the young girl was, she had an older brother who had went off to war, and she would stand by this tree in the front of their house waiting for her brother to come home. But the sad thing was her brother did not make it home. He was killed in action in the war. So the reason that she touched him all the time is because the two of them sometimes would get into almost an argument over whether the tree needed to be trimmed or whether it didn't need to be trimmed. And she wanted to make sure, the young ghost, wanted to make sure that he took care of the tree, that he was a tree trimmer, and that he should take care of the tree for her and make sure that it was always in good shape for them.
Oh, okay. And now I've also heard some stories about the building across the street from the inn.
Okay, the building across the street from the inn, we have been told that it possibly was a Civil War hospital. There was one in this location, very close to the location that we have been able to document this building is in. And at one time, it was a one-story building. You can tell from the end of the building where the building used to end. But at some point in time, I don't know I believe it was the current owners, they built a second-story dormers onto the building. So the building doesn't look like it would have been back during that time frame, but we've not been able to confirm or deny the story, but it could very well be that that was a Civil War hospital during the time.
Oh, okay. All right. So, and I know that there's lots of stories, and there are ghost tours on Main Street, and you know, people have lots going on here.
Right. Well, here in Frenchtown, a couple of years ago, we asked some of the residents and business owners if they felt they had a spirit in their building, if they would write a story and tell us about their spirit. So in October, we will have our ghost stories of Frenchtown up with the stories that people have shared with us that they feel that there may be a spirit there. We've also had 3 sets of ghost hunters here in the museum, and they all feel that there is a spirit here in the museum. One of the groups here had a medium with them, and she says that she spoke to Civil War soldiers upstairs. So it's all in what you believe, or that the very first set said we had a ghost named Joe. So here at the museum and Good News, we always talk about Joe. If we hear a strange noise or something, we go, "Oh, Joe's upstairs." So anyway, it's a fun read, and it will be on display here, and we enjoy telling the stories. So.
Oh, I can't wait to come back and read it. Thanks,
Okay.
Marsha.
You're welcome.
Marsha, how did the neighborhood of Frenchtown come into existence?
Well, I don't know officially how it happened, but I will tell you the story that a very good neighbor when we moved here that always liked to share history with us. He said that the French Canadians actually settled the city of St. Charles down by where historic Main Street is. Louis Blanchette landed and the fur traders landed on the sandbar that's by the casino that you always see from the bridge. And as the Germans came to town, he said that they started building the brick buildings down along where the French had settled. So the French came from Canada, so of course they came from the north. So as the Germans came and started building brick buildings, the French tended to start moving back up a little bit more towards the north part of the city. And so he always told me that the Germans, you know, are such serious people, but the French, they have fun and they frolic. So he said
fun and frolic.
Fun and frolic. So he said the French basically moved kind of up towards Sacred Heart Academy because St. Rose Philippine de Chine came from France, and she was a very vital part of the city. They had room to build the vertical log homes up in this area, while the brick homes were going up in the south part of the city, where along the river and close to where the 70 bridge is. So they just started calling this area Frenchtown. Some people think it's Frogtown, but Frogtown is actually north of Frenchtown. It is a section a little bit farther north than where Frenchtown is. So.
Okay, so wait. What is Frogtown, and why did that area get
called
Frogtown?
Frogtown, it started being called that area for 2 reasons. The first reason was the river would flood, and when the river floods, the north end of the city, down towards the end of Frenchtown, would flood, and the waters would come up over the road down around where the roundabout is off of Tecumseh at this time. And a good friend of mine that lived here and grew up her whole life here, she said when the river would recede, frogs would be left behind in your yard and on the streets, and so they would call it Frogtown. Historically, though, it was probably called Frogtown because a derogatory word for a Frenchman is a frog.
Oh, okay. So there's
a Frenchman could call another Frenchman a frog, but people outside that community, they took it as an insult to be called a frog. So there were two stories, but the one that is the friendlier and we like to tell is that the river would come up, the water would recede, the frogs would stay north of Frenchtown.
Okay. All these neighborhood secrets.
Yes.
Okay. Marsha, I've always wondered about that train out back. Can you tell me about it?
Yes. The caboose in the back of the building here on the property came from Noah's Ark. It was a restaurant and a restaurant and a hotel up on I-70 right before you cross the Missouri River. When they closed that restaurant down and decided to build the streets of St. Charles there, the caboose was still there. And Jerry Bolshears, one of the founders of the Frenchtown Heritage Museum, is a train buff. He loves trains, and he wanted to know what was going to happen with the caboose. So it was negotiated with the owners of the caboose at the time and with the city that they were going to bring the caboose to Frenchtown and put it behind the museum. So they had to raise some power lines, they loaded it on a huge semi, and they brought the caboose from Noah's Ark up on 70 to the backyard of the museum. And then we had the challenge of restoring the caboose because we wanted it to be restored to more what an original caboose looked like. Frenchtown has been the home of the American car foundry for many, many years, and lots of train cars were made in Frenchtown. At one time, 8 out of 10 households had someone in that household working at ACF, building these train cars. During World War II, they ended up building tanks in the foundry, and it has been used for multiple things since then. One of the main buildings now is our Foundry Arts Center. But once we got the caboose here, we started restoring the inside to make it look like it would have been by putting car siding back in the side. That's where car siding got its name, from railroad cars.
Oh.
We put new flooring in it, we put benches in it, we built the bunks for the workers to sleep in. We put the chairs back up on top of the bunk because they look out the window up here for direction to see which way the train is going to help the engineer, and had the train painted and restored. So now it sits here at the museum, and with the brewery, Good News Brewery being purchasing the property now, it will become a brewery, hopefully within the next 6 months to a year. They will be putting a 1-barrel brewing system in it. So they will be brewing beer in this end of the caboose that you'll be drinking inside the brewery here. So,
oh, how fun. Let's go out and look at it.
Okay. So here you can see that the caboose is one of the main attractions in the back of the patio at Good News Brewing and the Frenchtown Heritage Museum now. And so it's one of the things that people always see and they admire. They take pictures in front of it, and it's one of the treasures we have for the museum. And it will, as long as I know, will always stay here. So people ask me all the time what it is about Frenchtown that we enjoy, because we moved here. It's from small towns. It has a small town feel in Frenchtown. And we meet people all the time that move here. In fact, we just talked to a gentleman the other day, and him and his wife bought their very first house here. And they all say, we love living here because we moved in and people immediately came and introduced themselves and said hello and were friendly. And they said, we haven't found that in other places that we lived. Years ago, we had somebody say, why'd you buy a house in Frenchtown when we first bought it? And we were like, because it felt like home to us, coming from smaller communities. We said, we know our neighbors, we know things are going on, we know who to ask questions of. We've learned that because of the community feel that we have here. And also, when we moved here, my husband came to work for the first state capitol, so we were very interested in history. Frenchtown has so many hidden treasures in the city of St. Charles. One of them being Sacred Heart Academy. It is a beautiful, beautiful school, and it has so much history behind it. The American car foundry is in Frenchtown. The history of the American car foundry goes on and on. The historic homes, we are on the National Register for architectural design and some of the historic homes and buildings here in Frenchtown. And there's just so much to see and find out and know that it's just every time we turn around, there's something new and different that entices. But it's that community feel, that friendliness of people. You're going to meet somebody on the street. They're going to say hello. They're going to say hi. If you ask a question, of them, they are most likely going to ask you even more questions when they finish. So it's one of those things we always feel comfortable. We feel safe. People look out for each other. We look out for our neighbors, and it's just a fun place to be. So
I agree. I love living in Frenchtown.
Good.
Thanks, Marsha.
Thank you.
Those are just a few of the reasons I love living in Frenchtown. If you'd like to immerse yourself in the culture and community of historic St. Charles, Missouri, then come stay with us at In Frenchtown. I can't wait to meet you.